I can almost virtually guarantee that if you make all of these 4 principles and lay them out in your daily life, you're going to bring her back and change her mind about how she substantially feels about you faster than if you don't use these principles. I cannot think of a man that has saved his marriage in our program over the past decade who hasn't used each of these principles across his journey. Now, the last principle I've never, ever shared ever before, but I realized recently it is what speeds up progress. So if getting her back is important on a quicker timeline, then stick around. The first principle is radical responsibility. The author of Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, says, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. I want to share a clip of Alex Becker. He's a very successful businessman and influencer. Just check this out.
Everything is absolutely your fucking fault. So I told this story all the time and it makes people upset. So I'm going to tell it to you as well because being offensive gets clicks on YouTube. So look, if you go driving at 2 a.m. at night, let's imagine you're driving through and you stop at a stop sign and then you gradually go through the stop sign and then a drunk driver smashes into you. If you look at most people's opinions of the world, everybody would blame the drunk driver. He was driving around 2 a.m., shit faces, coming home from the bar, probably pounding a 6-pack. Of course it's his fault. He hit you. It's not at all your fault. But how does that help you? I want you to think about this. In this situation right here, you just got T-boned by a drunk driver. Yes, it's his fault. But what good is it? What good does it do you, even if it is his fault? What good does it do you thinking if you just think, oh, well, it's all the drunk driver's fault. It's not my fault at all. None. You're still in the hospital or dead. So you have to change the way you view the world. If we're driving around at 2 a.m., look at all the decisions we just made. We pulled up to a stop sign. We decided to go driving on a Friday night when we know drunk drivers will be out. We decided to drive in an area where drunk drivers might be. We didn't research where we were going to. We decided not to look both ways 15 times knowing that there's drunk drivers out before we pulled through that stop sign. These are all things that if you look down to the minute of it, we could have done to avoid this. So ultimately, us getting hit by that drunk driver in that situation is our fault. This is not how 99% of people think. And this is why they suck at life, because when things are not your fault, it also means you're not in control.
Now, a guy in our group call asked me last week, he said, Josh, when I was bringing up this principle, he goes, are you saying that my wife cheating on me is my fault? And I said, yes, I do believe it is. And this is where I get most pushback from a lot of guys. And I know it's really hard to understand this because when you are betrayed, you think to yourself, she did the action. She didn't have to do that. And I do agree. She shouldn't have betrayed you, whether she cheated on you, whether she's having an emotional affair, whether she's whatever it is. From your perspective, I understand why you feel the way you feel. It's the only reason I've come to this conclusion. I want you to think about this. What is my intention behind saying it is your fault? Am I trying to help your wife feel better about herself? Why would I do that? Okay. I'm having you take full responsibility because that perception allows you the best opportunity to get her back. It hurts, right? It sucks to say this is 100% because of me in my life. But you have to recognize in all my early relationships, I was the one who chose a woman who had signs. I can clearly see in those relationships how and why they were going to cheat on me. And I see through my behaviors, whether it was not leading, whether it was choosing a woman who cheated in previous relationships. Oh, but I'm special. She's not going to cheat on me, right? You have to recognize where you are responsible for your situation because that leads you to have more control. Let me use an extreme example to prove the point. Let's say you were a complete victim. I know most guys aren't there, but some men are. If you were a complete victim, which is like none of this is your fault, that you were a great husband, you provided, you did everything you could, you were a good man, there is nothing wrong. She shouldn't have done that to you. If you went full into that mode, what do you think would happen with your life? What would happen with the situation? What do you think would happen in the next relationship? You wouldn't change. And I can guarantee you one thing. You will recreate the next pattern with the next woman. So as a thought experiment, and this is part of the work, I want you to do this exercise. As a thought experiment, how did you lead to your situation where you're at now? Across your marriage, did you ever take proactive control thinking about how can I make my marriage more intimate? How can I connect with her deeper? How can I learn about my own individual patterns, my subconscious trauma that I've had that I've carried with me? Did you sit down with her? Did you go on trips with her specifically designed twice, 3 times, 4 times a year to review your joint goals together, your individual goals as people, how to support each other, what you're dealing with on a deeper issue? And look, one of the guys here in San Diego, I've become really good friends with who's in the program. He lost his wife because he couldn't process his own father's death and it brought him down. Now you can have the perspective, well, she should have been there for him. But for a full year, he was a shell of the man that he used to be. And he didn't process his father's death. He had so much grief and guilt around the relationship, okay? And he takes responsibility for all of that. And you have no idea how much he's flourishing now because of that responsibility he's taken. Look, when you step into extreme ownership, you become a top 1% man. The top leaders and successful people in every single domain take full ownership over their craft, over their life, over everything that happens to them. Now, radical responsibility is the blueprint in getting her back. Now I want to help you lay out the foundation. The next principle is that your ego is the enemy. Einstein said you cannot solve a problem with the same thinking that created it. We have to start with some fundamental truths, okay? The first truth that you must accept in being able to master this principle is that who you currently are is closest to your actions, beliefs, and perceptions. And every single action you did or didn't take, compounded over time, either brought her closer to you or further away. Now look, when you first started off with her, right, you didn't have much connection. You just started to meet her. But as time went on, you started to build connection through these individual things that you were doing with her. And connection got very high, okay, up to the point of, let's say, marriage. Now, a lot of men, what they tell me, right, is that when they have the first date, sex, verbal commitment, moving in, having the kids, for a lot of men, the kids are the turning point. No one ever teaches you the importance of putting God first in yourself and then the relationship and then the kids. And a lot of parents, what they'll do is they'll put the kids first, they'll put the job first. And so slowly over time, I want you to realize that a relationship is like a downward escalator that you're on, okay? If you're not actively investing, or it's like a plant, if you're not putting water and you're nourishing it, it's going to slowly die. You have to put energy into something to help it grow, to sustain it. And so over time, whether through complacency, not leading her, right, making decisions on a macro and micro level, you're bickering all the time, you don't know how to communicate, you don't know how to validate her, you have no novelty, right? There's boredom, you're not taking her places, you're not growing as a human being yourself, you're kind of staying the same, going through your habitual patterns of life, you are lacking integrity, not doing what you're saying you're going to do on the macro level of where you want to take the family, and on the micro level of these little things that you say you're going to do and you never do. All of those make her realize that you are no longer the man that she fell for. Now, when I say all this, the biggest mistake a lot of men can make is they say, well, they feel that they're not good enough. But you can only feel that trigger if you feel shame deep down already. I'm only pressing on a wound if you feel that way. At the end of the day, this can all be corrected. There are corrective actions. These are just simply behaviors. I'm not attacking your character as a person. I'm saying you as a man can learn and grow. In fact, it is your duty to. Now, why does the ego exist? Okay, well, the first maxim of the ego is that it wants to protect you, which basically means your self-concept and who you are doesn't give a damn if you're happy. It doesn't. It only cares that you're safe. Maxim number 2 of the ego, change to the ego, is equated with fear of death, of loss. Maxim number 3, your ego, your sense of self, will perceive yourself, the way you see yourself, the way you see your wife, the way you see marriage, the way you see the world, in order to keep it the same. And it will feed you emotions to keep that homeostasis. But you have to recognize that staying the same equals no growth, which means no getting her back. So the question is, how do you overcome this practically? Now, I'm going to tell you exactly how in the next principle, but for now, you need to be able to see yourself outside of yourself. There's that expression where you can't see the forest when you're in the trees. If there are things going on from the bird's eye perspective that are clearly showing you why you can't navigate out of this thing, but you're down in it, you won't see it. Now, there is an extremely powerful exercise I do want to give you, okay? I came up with this a few months ago and I gave it to the guys in the program, and it has been eye-opening. I want you to sit down and I want you to see the timeline, almost like a movie of your marriage, but put yourself in your wife's positioning, her perspective. I want you to see everything that you've done and feel the emotions she felt. I want you to get inside of her brain, right? I want you to see yourself the way you argue with her, the way you dismiss her, the way she needed your love and your care and your attention, your leadership, but you weren't present with her, okay? This should make you feel like crap. You should cry to this if you do it right. But that pain is a wake-up call, okay? That's why it's there. It's telling you what you've actually done and what you need to do moving forward. Now, I want to show you a clip of a recent call with a guy that really emphasizes this.
And I still have to remind myself to be calm, be empathetic, listen to understand. Don't listen to respond, listen to understand. And then make sure that I remain focused.
Defining frame first is there's so many ways to define it, but it's the way you interpret the moment, right? Based on your internal beliefs, right? What's behind the eyes, right? Your beliefs, your perceptions, because like you can have two separate men, two different frames. They receive the same response from their wife, but because one guy, he is thinking, oh, it's my responsibility. Her anger is actually pain. These different kind of beliefs versus this guy, she's jabbing me, she's attacking me, like I did nothing wrong. Completely different visual, like beliefs behind the eyes or frame, and they're going to have completely different outputs because of that, right? And so it's important to understand like that your frame are your beliefs, are your perceptions. I also want to give you a couple of beliefs that are really going to help you get outside of yourself to grow. Number 1, you need to stop taking yourself so seriously, okay? You should be able to laugh at yourself. There's a really good quote. It says, the angels fly because they take themselves lightly. That ego, it's when she's pointing out things in you and you get super reactive, you're taking yourself way too damn seriously. Like, let's be honest here for a second. Let's cut through all the BS. You are stubborn, right? You can be selfish, right? You can be dismissive. You can be cold at times yourself, and that's okay. You're human. But when she says it to you, don't feel so offended. Take a pause and be like, yeah, you're right. Honey, I have been selfish. You're absolutely right. I've been stubborn. See how much easier that feels to just admit that that's something that can happen? All right, now that we have the blueprint and the foundation, let's build the rest of that home. This principle is labeled as doing the work works. Now look, I love that you watch a lot of my videos. I mean, these videos have powerful information. I give away my best stuff for free because I want to help you. And you can see guys in the comments saying they saved their marriage without even joining my program. That's great. However, that is a rarity because information alone is sometimes not enough. This quote really stuck with me. Tony Robbins once said, "There's no secret to success. Simply do what other successful people do and you'll get the same results." Now, this is beautiful. We have data of over 1,000 men. We did this data not too long ago. We can track how much percent of the course men complete, how many group calls they go to, how many conversations back and forth with their coach they have, how many coaching calls they set up with, and how much we actually have score points in our school program to see who is engaged the most in our group. And then we took feedback forms saying how much men love the program and the growth they got from it with their wife. I'm not going to even draw this out for you because I think you already know. The more the men involve themselves in the program, the more they finish the course, the more they are involved helping other people, the higher the score they have in school, in our group, the more successful and satisfied they are with the program. You want to know the best step that you could take right now to get that success? It is to set up a free call with our team by clicking the link down below. It is a free strategy call, but we only take calls because we get our calendars booked. We only take calls with men who are fully invested and ready to take action. Now, this last principle is what I was talking to you about before. Let me start with this quote on blind spots. It's by David Rico. "Our wounds are often the openings into the best and most beautiful parts of us, but until we face them, we keep wounding others." Look, we now know that your ego is what prevents you from actually growing, right? Well, there are parts of yourself that you cannot see. Now, Carl Jung talks about this, calling it the shadow. Essentially, parts of yourself that you put away that it's hard to explain to you, but I can even show you these things, and until you see from a certain perspective, you won't acknowledge that they're actually happening. Let me give you an example. I worked with men in anger management, and I was working with this guy who was 6'8". I was intimidated, right? I'm 6'4", like 210, okay? And when he would speak to me, he would tell me these stories about how people would try to fight him, and he would have to fight back, and he would make these grand gestures, and it was really scary in his nonverbals and how loud he got, okay? And I was learning about really calling guys out on these blind spots. You see, the thing is the way he spoke to me one-on-one, he was giving off the same energy to everyone else. And I can see why people were afraid of him, why they had conflict with him, because I was afraid. But no one told him what I was about to tell him. After telling this story about how we got in a fight with someone and how the cops arrested him and how he got here to see me, after months of talking to him, he finally opened up. I told him I had to say something to him. Now, I started off with some positive affirmation because I really thought he was super charismatic and actually fun to talk to, except when he got into these stories. And I said to him, when you really go into these stories, you get really angry and you're a big guy. And like, I'm afraid, I feel fearful that I know you're not probably going to hit me, but I feel at any moment that you could. When I said that to him, I was scared. I thought he was going to get more angry or whatever it was, but he pauses. He sits there for about a minute, longest minute of my life. He looks at me and he goes, "Thank you. No one's ever told me that before. I understand." You see, you have all these invisible spikes. They're invisible to you and you can't see them on your body. But when you brush up against someone, sometimes you stab people, you hurt them, you push them away. But most people are not trained in how to point these out. They just ignore you. Your wife is the biggest gift because she has been telling you what those spikes are, okay? But you subconsciously, because you don't want to change, you just say, you know what, just don't be so sensitive. Or that's what you're saying to her, but you're hurting her. So the question is, how do you become aware of the spikes and how do you remove them? Now, the first free resource I want to actually give you is going to Positive Intelligence Assessment, typing that in Google and using the free assessment to look at your top saboteurs. We use this as a tool within our program to help guide men in seeing what are the biggest shadows that they have and helping improve that. And then we actually can mark their scores later down the road to see how much improvement they've had. The second best way, again, is set up a call with our team down below. And we can see within minutes, we can hear your story. And because our evaluators have seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of examples, we have pattern recognition. And we can say, hey, this is exactly what's going on. This is why you pushed her away. And then from there, we will give you the proven actions to actually solve those things based on the thousands and thousands of plus of calls our whole team have had. And from there, once you remove those spikes, you become safe with her again. She opens up to you. She trusts you. You get close to her. Now, if your wife keeps on bringing up the past and won't let it go, the video right here and how to get her to let go of the past is really good on the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.